I am excited to be able to share tonight. It's day 3, and I am excited to be sharing on the subject of communication. So, day 1, we talked about vision, and why vision is an essential quality is because vision is needed to take people to higher ground. People want to go to higher ground, and they don't always know how to get there. Leaders are visionaries, and they're able to see beyond what is to what could be, knowing that there is a team, a group of people that they need to get there, and that also share in that vision and want to get there. So that quality is so valuable and so important. As a matter of fact, the book of Proverbs 29:18 says, without a vision, people perish. You know, they pull back, that they their lives are hindered as a result. Decay sets in with a lack of vision. In day 2, we covered the importance of influence, and we defined leadership as influence. Influence has power because it moves people's thinking in a certain direction, which then causes them to make decisions. Influence is something needed within teams because when people trust you, they give you more, they buy into your influence, and influence is so valuable when it comes to understanding leadership. Both of those were each one day apiece, but in my leadership essentials course we unpack both of those much more extensively than we were able to do on the call. So tonight I want to talk about communication. Communication is an essential quality for effective leadership. And the reason it is because we need communication to establish connection with the people we lead. If we're not connected with them and they're not connected to us, it's very hard to move people forward, because then it's like you're forcing them, you're pushing them. And communication is one of those tools. I mean, think of it from this perspective. The root word of communication is commune. It's the word commune. So when we would say, well, people are communing, what does it mean? They're sharing in common. What communication does is it goes beyond words, but it takes words, it takes images, it takes actions. You can write it out, you can speak it out, but communication communes with people, and they communicate and commune with you, which either builds a healthy unity together or it can build walls instead of bridges, just depending on the nature of the communication. And in the traveling that I did, and I still do it every time I do a leadership workshop, every time I'm in it, whether it's in a church or in the business sector, I always ask this question. You heard me say I ask about what they feel are the most important leadership qualities, and they would list them. But then I would always ask this question. In your experience as a leader, what would you say is the most valuable skill that a leader needs to successfully lead their team or organization? And without fail, the overwhelming response that I received was effective communication. And I would ask them question, okay, you say communication. Why do you say that? What is it about communication that makes it the single most effective tool in your toolbox, or quality essential in your leadership? And many of the responses I'd get were, well, if we didn't have the ability to communicate, or there's a breakdown in communication, nothing happens. I mean, you could be the nicest, nothing gets done. And you're going, okay, I get that, and that's true. So let me bring it from this perspective when I talk about communication, and I'll, try to maybe highlight it a little bit more tonight as well. But when we're talking essentials, the human needs air, oxygen, they need food for energy, They need water because their body's made up of water. The brain needs it, the bones need it, the muscles need it. I mean, the body just needs water and it needs shelter. Well, think of it from this perspective as a human. If if oxygen was taken away from you as a human, how long do you think you'd live? You got food, you got water, you got shelter, but if oxygen was taken away, how long would you live? Now, the medical field says you could live if you're really advanced at holding your breath, or you could live maybe 4 to 5 minutes without oxygen. After that, brain breaks down, body breaks down. I mean, not long after that, the body perishes, dies. You go, okay, well, all right. Then oxygen obviously is a super important thing that we need, right? I mean, I could go without food for days. I wouldn't like it, but it won't kill me. Now, it will after a longer season, but oxygen, I can't go but 4 to 5 minutes, meaning I've never tried it, but that's what they tell us, that it's like 4 to 5 minutes, and all of a sudden, body starts breaking down, members start breaking down. Well, that's what communication's like. If you were to take away communication from a leader and the importance of it, things in a very short period of time will begin to break down because everything they do is in some form or fashion a way of communicating to paint a picture in their mind, to inspire them, to mobilize them around a vision, to encourage them, to strengthen them, right? Even to train them, to equip them. All of those qualities, all of those things which are necessary, they all stem from the ability to communicate. Again, whether it is in words or actions or written, there's some form of communication that causes a vision or a mission or an agenda to be moved forward by a team. And so a leader realizes, I really have to master this skill of communication, because it's not just talking, it's using words to commune with people, to connect with their heart, to connect with their mind. The words that I use paint pictures, images in their mind that help them with understanding. Because if we don't do a good job of communicating, the people will create their own image of what we think the vision says, what we think the mission is, what we think is important. And that's why communication becomes so valuable. So let me talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up for a little bit of Q&A. You know, I asked myself many years ago, why is communication so important in my leadership journey? And here are some things that I've come up with. Again, in my Leadership Essentials course, there's so much more on the subject of communication that I'm able to share tonight, but I'm just going to share a few things with you tonight. Number one, I got to thinking, well, because a leader communicates often and in various ways. They communicate in public speaking. Maybe they speak to their company. They speak in leading a team. They could be, having a meeting in a boardroom. They could be doing something like we're doing here in a Zoom call, but they're communicating. They're speaking to an audience. They could talk one-on-one to a staff person or a volunteer, right? They could have one-on-one time mentoring another leader. All of those require communication. They bring guidance. They bring direction to people. I mean, you get the idea of what we do. Even when we send out emails, how would somebody know what time we're going to have a Zoom call unless we send it in a message that people could read? They wouldn't know. So even if they would have desired to come, they wouldn't be able to because they didn't get the communication. Because communication has a sender, but then it has a receiver. And the sender and receiver have to commune together on that message and then engage in it in order for it to be effective. And when it is, it moves a vision and a mission forward. It encourages people. It motivates teams. I mean, it's the power of what good and healthy communication does. Why else is communication so important in leadership? Because leaders use communication to inspire people. I mean, that's you think about when you've been inspired by a movie, you've been inspired by a book that you read, maybe in a church service, a message, and you were so inspired. Take communication out of all of those. What happens? Well, inspiration's gone because, I mean, I don't hear something, I don't see something, I can't read something, so I don't have any real understanding. That's exactly what God did in the Tower of Babel. Remember what happened? These people were unified. They were building something. They wanted a tower to reach heaven. Well, that was their vision. That was their goal. And God wasn't pleased with that goal. And yet he said in verse 6 of chapter 11, anything that these people purpose to do because they're so united in their vision, they're so united in their communication, anything they seek to do, they will achieve. So, how did God respond? Remember what he did? He confused their language. He touched the communication piece. He caused them that they were able to speak words, but nobody understood each other. And what did it say about the work they were doing? It immediately stopped. See, when that communication from the sender to the receiver isn't connecting, and the people aren't connecting, things start breaking down. But when they do connect, you can inspire people. You can inspire them with hope. You can inspire them with vision. You can inspire them about a brand new course of direction that can take them to higher ground. But how do you do it? Yes, it's vision, but how do you do that? Most of how we do vision is we communicate it, whether in words, writing, visual pictures that we show them, a little mini movie, a little mini advertisement, and they get inspired by things like that. What else does communication do? Why is it so important in leadership? Because communication empowers those that you work with toward a common objective. You're able to empower people with an understanding and an awareness of why an objective or a goal is so important. And as people buy in, as they ask questions, and there's clarity that comes to their thinking and to their heart, now all of a sudden, yes, let's go forward. But what was it that was used? What tool was used to help empower them and then unite them? The power of communication. The power of communication. So it's one of the leader's most powerful tools is communication. All right. What else does communication do and why is it so important? Because when we're effective in our communication skills, it gains trust and it aligns both sight and attitudes as well as efforts toward a positive change. Communication is necessary to gain trust. People are going to hear what you say. They may be inspired, they may be motivated, but if you alter or change that communication, it will confuse them. And when they're confused, they will come and ask for clarity. And if you have a mixed message, all of a sudden the trust levels go down because they go, do they really understand? Like, I'm not understanding. And I've asked, I'm not sure on what's the objective. What are we trying to do? Or why are we doing that? Why is that so important? And they're just trying to build and gain that trust with you. Communication is that piece that when you say something and when you do something, that builds credibility. But you have to say it and then you got to do it, which that's where the alignment is. Communication helps to also align attitudes and align efforts, because when an effort is off, when somebody is going in a direction that is not favorable to the team, what do? You address it. How do you address it? With communication. We have to sit down and have a one-on-one. We have to talk with them. See, We have to share ideas and insights that help them see that here's the direction the team is going in, but their effort or their attitude is moving them away from it. It's not aligned. Communication is necessary to be able to gain that trust and then align attitudes and efforts toward a common objective so that you, the team, and they are able to all move forward. It requires that communication. Now, I'm going to shoot straight with you. When you got to have those one-on-ones, whether it's with a player or maybe even with a couple of players on a team, because they're misguided or they're creating friction or tension in the team instead of unity, those are not comfortable conversations. But they're conversations that need to be had because it won't fix itself if you leave it alone. It usually gets worse because by not addressing it, they think everything's fine. Or they may think they don't want to address it, so I'm just going to keep going in this direction, and it just severs the team spirit or brings a division. In other words, more than one vision. Instead of us moving all together in the same direction as an organization, as a church, as a nonprofit, as a family, instead of us moving in this direction, there's a division. It seems like there's more than one vision, and that will bring confusion. You know, a rabbit can't run down two trails at the same time. It's got to pick one. It can't go down both. Which one you're going to pick? And so that's what happens. It puts people in a place where it'll bring division. Last thing I'll say when it comes to this is, you know, what I think is the most important thing to understand why communication is so important in leadership is because it is, like oxygen is to the body, it is the most essential part of effective leadership. There's nothing you're going to do as a leader that doesn't require some form of communication. Again, verbal, public speaking, written, whether you're writing a blog, you're writing a letter, you're writing something, a training manual that you want people to read and follow. Those are all communication pieces. And those pieces, without them, will cripple the team. They won't know what to do, and they're going to seek direction. So that communication is actually like the fuel that is built with influence, because you're going to either communicate inspiration, clear direction, encouragement, or by lack of communication or poor communication, it discourages people. You know, it doesn't motivate them, and therefore they don't align with the mission at hand or the task that's necessary at the moment. So because communication is that vital, essential piece, then I would encourage that, you know, that's something that we need to work on, enhance. Remember the question that I brought to you in the beginning when I would ask leaders, and I still do, what do you think is the most essential? If there was one tool in the toolbox that helps all the others, what do you think is the most important skill that you could develop as a leader to effectively lead your team and your organization? And again, I'm talking well over 90% of people. They all would say effective communication. So then I would ask them a question that was a bit disheartening on the response. I would ask them, how many of you have spent your money to invest in a book or a course or something, a podcast that maybe it's even free? You'd have to invest your time. How many of you have made an investment to sharpen and hone in your communication skills? Hardly anybody raised their hand. And I would say, okay, so what I'm hearing from you is you acknowledge that this is the most important, essential quality in a leader's toolbox, the skill of communication, effective communication. And yet many have not spent any time to help hone that skill in, to better that skill, whether it's leading their family, leading a church, public speaking, writing letters, whatever it may be. It's the ability to connect. Communication connects with people that you lead, and that is essential. So that being said, let me open it up for questions that you may have at this point. Do you have any questions about anything that I've covered tonight so far on communication? Okay, so we have a quiet bunch tonight, huh? Okay, so I want go ahead. Sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay,
As you said, the communication is the transfer of information from the source. That should be the source and the receiver. So I would like to know if feedback is necessary in a communication.
great question, Jimmy. Yes, it is. And in my course, the Leadership Essentials course, I cover that. But yes, it is. Great question. Um, Getting feedback is essential. Now, let me give you two examples of this. One, I'm going to give you, I grew up in a time when the radio was the primary, thing that you used to listen to music and hear the news. You had television, and I know I don't look that old, but we had television, but the radio was something you carried it around with you. I mean, you just did. And we used to have this antenna you'd pull up, or on a TV when we had them. We had the rabbit ears, that went up. So a signal is being broadcasted or sent from the television station for you to view, or a song is being sent over the airwaves that you could tune in on the radio to hear it. So it is being sent. But what happens if the rabbit ears on the TV or the antenna on the radio are not dialed in to pull down that signal? What happens is you just get that, right? That noise that you can't understand what's being sent. That's why feedback is very important when it comes to our communication, is that we want to ask people, did I communicate that well? Or what I've done is I've asked them, could you repeat back to me what you thought you heard me say? Because I may not have communicated as well as I would have liked to. So I put it on me. And then they'll tell me what they thought they heard me say. And sometimes 100% spot on, great, we can move forward. But there are times that when I hear that it's not exactly the message that I was trying to get across. So then I need to recommunicate that brings clarity where there was misunderstanding. So I applaud you, Jimmy. That was a great question to ask because we do need feedback in order to establish harmony and clarity. The message was received clear, and we have a harmony or a unity in the message that we can move forward together. I'm going to give you another example, and I'll be brief, but I'll show you this in this regard how important communication is and to be effective with our words. Because here's what I'm going to say: words in communication or words in writing something, they're the brushes that are used that paint images on the minds of people. And we want to make sure that the image that is painted on their mind is the one we are intending to paint, that it has the color that I want. And that's why I need to get feedback. So here, let's do a little example and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm looking outside and I see right now a gray car across the street. Can anybody tell me what that gray car is? Of course not. Because when I said gray and car, you could have 10, 12, 15 different ideas of a gray car, right? So what do I got to do? I have to communicate with words better to enhance the picture in your mind so that we're both seeing the same thing. All right. So then I go, all right, well, I'm looking at a gray car and it has 4 doors on it. Okay, well, now you see 4 doors, but I didn't really help you that much. Then I'm saying, that gray car across the street has 4 doors and a sunroof. Ah, okay. I told you that. I used words. I'm seeing it. But if I assume that you know what car it is, you're going to go, I don't have the foggiest idea. And if I did get it right, it would be a guess. I'm guessing. That's what happens with people. If we're not good in the communication piece of giving clarity to allow an image and a picture to be painted in their mind, because when I use words, it creates a picture because the mind only thinks in images. And words are the brushes that are used to create the image to the mind and to the heart to help people gain clarity and understanding. So let's continue because you'll get it after a while. Now I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, it's a gray car. It's got 4 doors. It's got a sunroof and it's a Nissan. Now, all I did was use one word. I said Nissan and it narrowed down the field, didn't it? Because I said Nissan. Well, you'd be guessing. You got a better idea, but you'd be guessing, what kind of Nissan? So now I'm going, all right, I'm looking at a car across the street that's a gray car, 4 doors, sunroof. It's a Nissan Altima. If you know what a Nissan Altima is, the picture immediately came in your mind. But if you don't know what a Nissan Altima, in other words, Nissan Altima equals, if you have never seen the image or picture of a Nissan Altima, you wouldn't know what it was. So while I communicated it clearly, I know what it is. Somebody else on the receiving end may have to ask, what's a Nissan Altima? And now I got to show them a picture of a car that's a Nissan Altima. Even if it's not gray, they can put the gray. Oh, okay, I got it. All right, they'll ask light gray, dark gray. Well, it's light gray. Oh, okay. See, all those words while we were checking and touching base, I was sending a signal, but early on, and as I walked through the process, my signal wasn't very clear to the receiver. It had images to it, but really vague. They would have been guessing. And that's how breakdowns in communication come. Leaders assume that because they said something once or said it in a way they understand it, the assumption is, well, anyone who heard that would understand it. That would be like me saying, I see a gray car across the street that's got 4 doors and a sunroof. You know what it is. No, you wouldn't know what it is. And it would be my fault because I'm not using the words effectively to give you the picture so that we can agree on it and see it together. That's the power of communication skills. And that's why we work on understanding how to use words and how to do it in a way that it paints an image and gives color and definition in the minds and hearts of people. Because when they can see what you see, they can buy into it. When they see the vision you see, the goal you see, the objective you see, the steps that are needed that you see, when they see those things, you can walk together. But until they see those things, it's hard to build a connection with the receiver. Okay? Did that make sense? All right. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Hey, you guys. Okay, Jimmy, sorry if you have a question. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you. Jimmy, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? So we can, yay.
Sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
There you go.
So does it mean vision and communication go together?
Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, how would you be able to share a vision without being able to communicate it very clearly? Right? In other words, if somebody just said, we're going to take that mountain. Great. I know the goal is to take the mountain. Anybody who's standing there that's going to go on the journey is going to go, how are we going to do it? What path are we going to take? Right? Because they're going to ask that question because that helps them understand. So, to your point, which is a great question, vision and communication go hand in glove. But when we talk about any of these essential qualities that are in my course, communication is needed for all of them. You're going to need them all. How do you encourage somebody without communication? How do you build courage within your team without communication? How do you build trust without establishing a communication? How do you mentor or coach somebody in their development without communication? How is it done? How is it done? So yeah, it's which is why, no surprise, leaders who have served in leadership positions for any length of time always say communication is the most valuable, most important skill or tool I could develop. And that's why I always ask the question, well, then how much time or resources have you invested in helping you with things to develop that communication skill? Because it doesn't happen just because you can talk. It's not just the ability to talk, it's the ability to use words, to frame pictures. That takes a skill. It's the ability to be able to write something down, a mission statement, or writing an article, writing a letter, writing steps that are needed to go in a direction. It's the ability to write it down that is clear to the receiver so they understand it, because other than that, they will interpret what they think you meant, not necessarily what you meant. Yeah. All right. Pretty cool stuff, you know? Woo-hoo! All right. Now, I know I mentioned it to you and I'll do it again just in case. Let me put in the chat. We had the other night, we had folks that went in and they signed up for the Leadership Essentials course. You can do that. What I put, oh, maybe, what did I just do? Let's see, I see what I did. What I did is I put the link in there. It should be in there. Let's see it. Why is it not getting in? There we are. Okay, well, I put it in there. Sorry. I put it in there so that there's an early bird registration. And this, again, it's just if you're interested in it. But I can tell you what we're covering here in communication, that I do a chapter on it that is 3 videos that break down communication. I share a 5-question template that I put together for me, that I ask myself, that helps me in shaping the words I use in letter writing or in any bullet points or in communication if I'm public speaking or in a meeting like this. You know, what are those things that I need to be aware of so that I can help shape that for the people that are on the receiving end, and that I do a well enough job so that they're able to comprehend it? Because if they don't, I didn't do my job very well on the communication side. So if that is something that you're interested in, like whether it's communication or vision, or we'll talk about a couple of more, like next time we're together, we're going to talk about courage. Courage is an essential quality for effective leadership, because courage is the ability to do what is right, not what's popular, not what others want, but to do what's right. And leaders have to do what's right. They got to make the right calls, right? And courage is something that's got to be developed. You don't learn it just because you desire it. You got to build that muscle. And courage can only be built when you face challenging and tough times. Courage isn't built when everything's going well. And leaders will have to navigate through challenging waters, tension, adversity. What is needed to do all that? Courage. So we'll talk about that next time. But I'm bringing that up, that if you go to the website and you are interested in Jimmy, to think about you if you can, we said we were going to communicate with you because we know that where you're at overseas, the economy is different. If this is something that you would like, you email me and let's communicate. Even if we get on another call, we'll make something happen so that you can get it. I just need to know that it's something you'd like to get. And if it is, we'll make something happen that will work for you. Okay. So just to let you know, because folks that'll watch the replay of this, we have people that have been on and watched this who are in other countries, and I'm grateful for that. I have an influence that has spread across into other leaders in other countries, and I realize that there's, we put everything up in the U.S. as far as our currency, but we will make things work out. I just need to be able to hear from those leaders to say, hey, we really want this. It'll be valuable. What can we do? And so I have assured you, Jimmy, and others will make it work. Just let me know, like communicate with me, because I won't force it on you, but if it's something that you'd like, we'll make it work. Okay. All right. Anybody got any closing questions or comments before we wrap up our call tonight? All right. Woohoo! Well, I want you to know I love you and I am committed to your success. I'm thankful that you took the time, you invested time on this call, and I hope that it's been profitable for you. I hope that there were nuggets shared that can really help you in developing your communication skills with the team that you lead, the family that you lead, because it will reward you. That's the one thing that I love with communication. It will reward you. I'll close with this. I was at a leadership workshop. It was actually an all-day seminar with John Maxwell back in the 90s, late 90s. And people knew that I knew John, and that even though I wasn't a speaker there, I brought leaders that I was mentoring in the church that I was leading. I brought them to that conference because I knew that there'd be things that they would hear that I had shared. I knew there'd be things they'd hear, but all of a sudden, I just wanted them to hear another voice. But I also thought that it would bring an enhancement because of the environment that they'd be exposed to. Right. And so while we're walking out after the conference is over, we're walking out and I see this young gentleman, probably in his late 20s, and he's got a couple of other folks with him, and he was making a beeline to me. And it's like, okay, all right. I said to them, I said, I think he wants to talk to me. And he comes up to me and he stops and he says, are you Ron Yutzi? I went, yes, sir, I am. And he said, like 13, 14 years ago, you did a meeting and he told me where the meeting was. It was on Long Island. And there was I think there were 400 to 500 people that were in that meeting. And I was communicating something in that. And he said, I want you to know that meeting altered the direction for my life. I literally went down a certain road because of what you shared in that meeting. And now I am actually operating, getting paid. I'm working in a leadership role in a company because of that meeting. And I just wanted to shake your hand because obviously I mean, when you got that many people, I probably even might have talked to him. I just don't remember because he's grown. He's like now 13 years later. And, and that was, again, whether I saw him or not, I don't remember, but he remembered me. And I'm saying it to you because the power of communication, when you share a message and the receiver is getting the message, you're the one who's sending it, the receiver's getting it, the fuzz can get eliminated when we use words properly to build images in the minds and hearts of people that help us align with a mission or align with the message. That's how we know we've communicated the message. All right. So, hey, folks, you've been great. Thank you for your questions. And again, I put up in the chat, you can see the link for the early bird 50% off, $50 off. Sorry about that. Put that in there. And we'll see you then on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what we're going to cover is another essential to effective leadership, and it's called courage. The essential quality for leaders to do the right thing, make the right calls. Okay? Woohoo! All right, folks. Thank you. All right.